Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Welcome to this special press conference, the subject of which is the sinkhole which developed on the Northwest Bluff over about the last few weeks. The press conference will only discuss this subject this morning. The Governor will arrange another press conference to discuss other matters in 2-3 weeks' time. The way we'll run this morning is that Her Excellency the Governor will make some short introductory remarks, and then Dr. Rod Stewart and Billy Darrow will be discussing the science and what's been found out so far and what other activities taking place. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. Good to see you here. As Tony mentions, we wanted to meet the media to talk about this phenomena, largely to bring you up to date on what we know so far. So we brought the experts. And because there's been a lot of speculation, and these kinds of things can be worrying to the public if they don't have the facts and know what's going on. Although I know that you have been on the radio quite a bit, and there's been so have you, I think, as well, Billy. So there's but we thought it would be good to bring everybody together to discuss what we know so far about this, and to take questions that you might have. So really our purpose is to update the public on what we know, take any questions that we can answer at this point, and also just to maybe get a bit of a sense of the nature of public concern about this. I mean, we hear it on the media and so on, but as members of the press, you can also express those concerns or ask questions, since you have the experts here. Right now, our particular concerns, and by the way, we were hoping to have the government here as well, but we're unable this morning because of schedules. But this is also acting in union with the government to hear concerns and address any issues that we can. So our concerns are to ensure that there is safety in that area, so people know that they shouldn't be going in that area. Partly because there's a hole in the ground and people can fall through it, and we don't know how solid the ground around that hole is. I'm sure Rod will explain that. And ensuring the public is as informed as we are. So this might be the first of several discussions, or there may be no need for subsequent discussions, but that will be I think decided on the basis of the knowledge and how that develops. So we will provide updates as necessary, and I think that's being provided on a regular basis. So that's all really I wanted to say. I wanted to make sure that the public was as aware as we are at present of what this phenomenon is. I think the main message we want to get across to people as well is that any of these kinds of configurations in the ground can be dangerous. They're a bit unpredictable, and we don't want people flocking to the area. So the best thing we can do is to inform them as much as we know of the science of it. So I'll stop there. And Tony, should we turn to Rod?
Okay, thank you, Governor. Good morning, everyone. There's been quite a lot of information out on Facebook and other channels, but I'll quickly just go through everything, and then you can ask me any questions you have on the issue. So the image we've got now shows the location of the sinkhole. It's basically the most northern point of Montserrat. This is the northern part. The airport's just at the bottom of the image. The road going up the middle is the road that goes to the Silver Hills radio transmitter. And then it's a considerable hike. It's about 45 minutes hike over the hills to get to what we call Northwest Bluff. And then the little target there shows you where the sinkhole is. It was discovered by us last Wednesday, because we have a GPS station nearby, and when we flew into the GPS station, we saw it from the ground. We saw it from the helicopter. We did not see it a month ago, which was the last time that we visited that station. So that led us to believe that this is at most a month old. We've since had some information from farmers or hunters who go to that area that the collapse may have actually started slightly earlier. Before Christmas, there may have been a smaller collapse, but not the big hole that we see now. So it may have taken place over a few weeks. We're still talking to people to get as many stories as we can, people that might have visited that area, but it does seem it started maybe sometime just before Christmas. But the large hole that we're talking about definitely opened up less than a month ago. So this is the aerial photo of the sinkhole. We have 3 people here for scale. It's fairly circular in shape. It's about 5 meters across, that's 15 feet, and has near vertical sides to the walls. It actually opens out a bit underneath. It widens as you go down. So going near the edge of the sinkhole is incredibly dangerous. This stuff is going to fall in. We see cracks around the edge. You can see on the top left, there's a bit of a lip there. I wouldn't want to stand there at all. It's really not a good place to be. And there is a good chance that it will widen considerably, depending on what's underneath. So that's the general view from the air. This is looking down into the sinkhole. It's up to about 30 meters deep. That's 100 feet. I think the longest rope we've got is 100 feet long, and I think it didn't touch the bottom. But we're going to make better measurements of that this week. But that's looking down the sinkhole. It does narrow as you go deeper, but you can't really see the bottom here. There does seem to actually be a darkness even further down. And if you look into this hole, this picture, you know, there's a slot here that looks as though the tunnel might continue. And we've got the feeling that it goes down and then turns a bit, and it's turning towards the north, towards the sea. Okay? Now, something that's very interesting about this photo is that there's no debris here. The material that fell down should normally be sitting at the bottom of the hole, but it's not. So it really does seem to have actually gone further into perhaps a bigger cavity that's further down there. So there is a suspicion now that the hole is actually a lot deeper than this, and we can only see the top connection. This is a video that we see, and you can see the steam that's very gently coming out of the hole, okay? It just looks like mist or clouds, but that is actually steam that is coming out of the hole. And then this is its location close up. And this is quite interesting. Just looking at the landscape around here, I mean, it's very steep cliffs. There are quite a few cracks and fissures in these cliffs. There may well be some sea caves here. And this feature here, this is a big sort of C-shaped indent. That's clearly a collapse at some point in the past. Maybe hundreds of years ago, maybe even thousands, but that does look like a collapse. So this area is prone to collapses. The rock here is very, very weak. It's sort of what we say is hydrothermally altered. And we've had a previous collapse, and this sinkhole itself may be the start of another collapse. It may lead to a collapse. But that's speculating, and I have no idea what the timescale is. But we're fairly confident now that the collapse is into a larger cavern. We think there's an underground cavern, and we think that is linked to the sea by some sort of sea cave. People have said there are caves around here. And there are 4 reasons for this. One is the fact that the material from the sinkhole has disappeared into something. The second fact is that when you actually analyze the steam a little bit more, it's salty. It has been generated from salt water. And then the other observation, which is only it's not a very good observation, but we've been there 3 times, and if the sea's rough, we seem to get more steam coming out of the sinkhole. So there does seem to be the link there. And I've forgotten what the 4th one was. Okay, we'll forget about the 4th one.
We'll come back.
But all our observations are suggesting that there is a cavity underneath that, and we've fallen into that cavity. And this, of course, raises the safety concerns. There may be further collapses. There may not be. It may stay like this for a long time. But it is not a good place to visit, certainly not near the sinkhole. The only thing that we're still trying to solve is the source of the heat. There is a source of heat that is heating the water to generate this small amount of steam. We're not sure what that is at the moment, but MVO are putting out sort of lots of equipment, and we're making observations, we're investigating the area to see if we can identify if there is a source of heat up here. It is certainly not linked to the eruption at the volcano. I mean, a lot of people have been speculating that. That's not the case. This is going to be something like a very old source of heat associated with the dead volcano that is Silver Hills. I mean, the area where we are, where it's all altered rock, this is likely to have been an old soufrier, but for it to maintain heat for a long time after the volcano died is a bit of a puzzle. And I think that's the word I like to use. It's a puzzle, but it's not a worry. Okay, it's not something that is a general concern. It's just something localized that is generating heat. So I think that's the story we've got scientifically so far. We're going to continue this week with more investigations and see if we can get more details of what's going on. There should be another picture. Oh, here we go. And just to show the current situation, this is Billy's picture. The sinkhole is here, and it is currently roped off with marking tape at a considerable distance from the sinkhole because we're worried it will enlarge. And then I think, Billy, the plan is to have a fence constructed this week, because the real danger will now be is animals going in. Animals can ignore this tape. So we're going to have a permanent fence constructed around here that's going to stop people wandering in.
And humans.
And humans as well. The problem is people going to see it, because you really can't see much from the ground. You know, from here, there's no sense of a sinkhole. You have to either be in a helicopter or right on the edge, and being right on the edge is dangerous. So I really don't think we're going to get lots of humans going there, but we have to have the fence around there to stop people and animals falling in.
And that's just the beginning of the fence.
That's just the beginning. Is the fence going to be the same area? Do you want to talk about the fence?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Just to follow on from Rod's point, the DMC has so far placed a warning tape around it, so it's visible from the ground if somebody's walking in that area. The intention is to put a fence outside of that warning tape, about 100 feet either side, so it will be at least 40, 60 feet from the center of the hole on any of the sides. Just to continue with safety, we're just going to ask people, please avoid the area unless you have business there, and I don't think persons have business there generally. But there is evidence that persons may be hunting their animal tracks, and we have information that persons may be hunting in that area, so we're asking persons to be very careful and in any case to avoid the area. Now, this same warning applies for other areas in the exclusion zones or places where persons have been warned. It's really difficult to assist persons if they get in trouble in these areas. And from looking at the sinkhole, well, the photos of the sinkhole, I know that there is no capacity on Montserrat to support somebody who may fall into that hole, either to even to retrieve something that has fallen, or somebody who has fallen into that hole. So we want to insist on that warning we gave first, that person should not visit that area, person should avoid the area at all costs. Again, I will just reiterate, it's the same goes for other areas in the exclusion zone or other places that are dangerous on Montserrat. We are really putting persons at risk if we go to these areas, get injured, and we have to call for assistance. The plan now is this week, with support from the MVO and other agencies, to install the fence and warning signs, very high visibility warning signs, so persons can see it from some far distance. As it is now, my concern, or our concern, is that somebody may be walking in the area and not see it until they're up on it. We're hoping that the marking tape can last that long and will warn people. The real aim is to make it inaccessible, so to speak, so we will put a metal fence around it and warning signs.
Rod, we know that sinkholes are usually a sign of weakness in a particular area. What are the possibilities of having further collapses of that particular area or surrounding areas with the appearing of the sinkhole?
It is a possibility, and that's why we're warning people about going to this area. However, in most of the cases around the world of sinkholes, they do seem to be solitary. You don't get clusters of sinkholes. So, but the thing is, it's so unusual. I've never seen a sinkhole before. We think there's only maybe 2 other examples of this in the Caribbean islands, in the volcanic islands. So it is very, very difficult to anticipate what's going to happen, which is why we have to warn people. But it is a possibility that there could be further collapses.
Can I have a supplementary before we move on? Okay, Rod, it's what is the type of material that this particular area is made up of? Do you have an idea?
Yes,
because that could trigger the collapses that
yeah,
you mentioned.
I mean, these are volcanic deposits. All of Montserrat is made up of volcanic deposits. These are basically pyroclastic deposits that have been generated in very old pyroclastic flows. But they've been heavily altered. They've been heated in the past and they've had water in them, which means that the rocks are very, very fragile. They crumble in your hand. So it's quite easy to see that any sort of wave action on the cliffs can erode a cave. There are fracture sort of things. These are probably some of the weakest rocks on Montserrat. So it is a place where, you know, things can happen.
Question for Billy. Any plans to find people who may be found in those areas trespassing?
In relation to the exclusion zone, the law already makes provisions for prosecution and punishment for offenders. As it relates to this area, it has not been designated by statute, so we cannot prosecute. But persons, we are hoping that persons will take the good advice and avoid the area.
I was just going to ask the acting premier for some feedback on what plans or how are you working with the other organizations on this?
Thank you, Nerissa. I'm pretty much just being brought up to date about the sinkhole. So in relation to the work, the lead would have been with the MCA as well as with MVO in relation to providing the guidance necessary for this. As we develop exactly what is involved, and especially as it relates to the security of the area, I'm sure others will be brought on board, perhaps the police as well. And also in relation to the fact that that area, as pointed out by Rod, the material is a lot more fragile per se, not as strong as other rocked areas, that this is an area which will become one of much concern to us. And so the necessary security, etc., would need to be put in place. Governor's office, governor being responsible for security, I'm sure all of us will pull together to ensure that the people of Montserrat is well protected as it relates to this new development of the sinkhole.
Okay, any further questions?
Timeline on when we might be able to get further updates on the testing. Tell us a little bit more about what sorts of tests you will have to do. I know you've put new seismic equipment up there. What exactly would you be looking for?
We've put a spider up there which has a seismometer in it, and this can sometimes detect collapses. So if this sinkhole turns into a large-scale collapse, like that bit of the coast I showed you, there should be some small earthquakes associated with that. So the seismometer should pick that up. Another way of picking up any movement of the material, the material that's between the sinkhole and the sea, that's what you'd worry about collapsing into the sea, is measuring the ground deformation. So we will be putting an EDM reflector in, that's electronic distance measurement, and then we can measure the distance to that reflector very accurately with a laser. So once that reflector's in, we will go back once a week, say, and measure that distance to see if there's any changes, and that will show us if larger amounts of material are actually slowly moving away. At the moment, I suspect it's not happening. We've got no other evidence of movement, but we have to start the baseline measurements of that. And one of the very important things for the baseline measurement is getting what we call good photogrammetry coverage. That's basically a set of calibrated photographs that are sort of linked to the map, and then we can repeat this and check for any changes. So this Wednesday we'll be doing this. It involves taking a GoPro camera, which many people have. They're quite cheap, but they're very good, and attaching it underneath a helicopter and just flying straight lines across. And then on the computer we can merge them together to make a very accurate, calibrated photo map. And then we will repeat that again at intervals to see if there's any changes. This is a technique that we use in other parts of the island and is very effective. So those are some of the immediate things that we've been doing. We're also going to try and get some photographs from inside the borehole, inside the sinkhole. We're trying to work out what sort of camera we can lower down on a rope and take photographs. We want to get photographs of the walls to see if there's any alteration, but we also want to see if we can make any more sense of where the bottom is. So we'll be doing that. We are looking at sampling the steam to see if we can get any information from that. We've already made gas measurements. And so we've got a lot of bases covered. Now that we've become a bit convinced that there is some sort of cavity down there, we're also looking at, are there any techniques that can maybe help us measure that cavity? And there are a couple of geophysical techniques that we can use. We don't have the equipment for these, but we've already contacted some of our cooperators to see if we can bring that equipment in. So these are sort of longer term plans. I think the important things, the most important thing, first of all, is public safety. And that's why we've been talking about it from the first go, that this is a dangerous thing if you're on top of it. So we've done the public safety, and we've done some of the basic measurements and the basic assessment. But there's lots of other things we can do, but the work will become slower because it's much more complicated work. But when we have results on this, we will release them either as part of our normal weekly report from MVO, or as something like this, or through the DMC. There are other channels. But when we get further results and we're sure of those results, we will communicate that to people.
Rod, I know that the measures that are being taken now, they are evolving. Mm-hmm. But in terms of safety, I'm looking at the possible interaction of the seawater with the cavity that you mentioned underneath, and the possibility of a larger area being prone to a collapse of sorts. So on the safety aspect, I'm looking at possibly, that area, the general area, to be a no-go area. Your Excellency, I don't know how this could be even done. Possibly to declare that particular area generally a no-go area for safety reasons.
I think that's a very good point, and as mentioned, it's not so designated at this time, and we're getting a bit more information on it. I think, first of all, what we need to do is make sure we provide up-to-date information, and as soon as we found out about this, we put out messages to the public with as much information as we had at that moment, and we'll continue to do that. This press conference is about doing that, and we intend to do that whenever we have more information. I think the message that we want to send to the public is stay away. It's dangerous, simply that. And if we have to designate the area in some way or patrol the area in some way, we're obviously putting up fencing as quickly as possible. We will do that. There are areas on the island that are not safe, and people need to be sensible about listening to warnings and following that advice. I just want to say that we will explore what measures we should be taking. Right now we're fencing off the area. We may take further measures. Some of them might require some decisions in cabinet and so on by the government about how to designate that area. It's a fragile area. Just don't go there. I think that's our big message. The other thing is that we will provide updates whenever we have further information. We're absolutely dedicated to ensuring that as soon as we have additional information, we'll provide it to the public. That's in everyone's interest, because speculation can run wild given the history of this island, and we want to ensure that people are as informed as possible on the dangers. So I would say, you know, stay away. If you don't stay away, you're taking a risk. And as we gather more information, we will probably increase surveillance of the area and fencing off of the area.
There's been a lot of discussion on social media and speculation, as Your Excellency mentioned, about people discussing that there might be another volcano or volcanic activity restarting in that area. So I want you to put it to rest, basically. Volcanic activity restarting.
There is no restart of volcanic activity. Silver Hills is a dead volcano. It's heavily eroded. The rocks we can see are the sort of internals of the volcano. It's not the surface of the volcano. It's something, there's a localized heat source that we've yet to pin down, but it's very small scale, and it is not volcanic activity starting up there. I do want to say that although there has been lots of speculation in social media, there's been a lot of good comments as well. I've been very heartened by a lot of people just saying, oh, this is good, this is that, thanking us for giving information. So there's been a lot of welcome reactions. And the social media has also helped us to get some information. People have actually come forward with some information about this area, which may be useful to us. So I think the social media exercise has been really useful. There are just some people there that, and I think they're from outside Montserrat, they come with crazy ideas, and they just, you know, social media is like that. But I think we're getting a lot of very good feedback, and most people are sort of aware of what it is and what the situation is.